Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hubscale Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Zak Krider, the Director of Strategy and AI at Trellix. Zach, it's amazing to have you on. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. Really interested to jump on this podcast and talk about my favorite subject, AI and cybersecurity.
Likewise. No, it's amazing to have you here. Thanks for sparing the time. Do you want to kick us off? Give us a little bit of an intro into Zach and what you get up to over there at Trellix.
Yeah, so my background, how I started in cybersecurity is probably different than most people, right? So I actually graduated, went to college for game design and simulation, going to be in video games, and actually just through a friend got introduced to cybersecurity, and through that kind of fell in love with the industry, right? So started at McAfee in support, and really just worked a way up through McAfee, through services, and just the product organization just kind of that journey, right? And then McAfee's gone through its own kind of journey, which came to Trellix. So about 4 years ago, McAfee Enterprise spun out with FireEye Enterprise and formed Trellix about 4 years ago. So we've been a pretty strong company since then. So we really have a unique position too in the market, right? Because merging both kind of the technology blends from both companies, right? We have endpoint security, security operations, data security, network security, and email security. So really kind of a true platform that really helps provides visibility and coverage across all spectrums for customers.
Yeah, amazing. And I was going to ask, obviously, for those who don't know, can you just give a little bit of an insight into Trellix as an organization, security space, and how they stand out from the rest?
Yeah, so like I said, we have solutions that cover the whole gamut, right, of all the different areas that people are concerned about. And so that's what's unique about us is we have solutions that you can place on your network, email, collaboration, cloud, endpoint, data, and all feeds into kind of a centralized platform, if you will, from security operations standpoint. It makes it easier, right? When you have one vendor, everything's already integrated, works together. You don't have to start kind of piecemealing things to get them to work. So providing that overall visibility and streamlined visibility across organizations really helps teams, right, as they're trying to solve a lot of the security challenges. And then we all know too, like a lot of customers struggle with, vendor sprawl, right, of dealing with, 40, 50 different vendors, all different UIs, connectors. So having kind of a single eye platform that has all these different areas of visibility really makes it easier for the operations teams to manage their environments. And same thing for MSPs and MDRs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, obviously, entitled Director of Strategy and AI, there's not many of those out there. So, are you okay just giving a bit of insight as to how the role came about and kind of how that is unique to the space?
Yeah, it is kind of unique to the space. So I would say originally I was leading a team of architects or solution architects within Trellix at the time, and then really started looking from a executive leadership standpoint of how can we be more strategic in kind of what we're doing as a company. So it really started with the strategy part first, and then I think we all know about 2 years ago, ChatGPT kind of broke into the space, and I think it's everyone had the light bulb moment of like, hey, we really need to go check out generative AI to really see how we can leverage it. So it kind of blends well in the strategy piece of leveraging generative AI both for our products of how we can solve problems that customers face, both from an operational standpoint and just a security risk standpoint, but also leveraging the same solutions internally, right, to improve processes that we have to really be more efficient. So driving kind of strategic direction for the product side of the house and strategic direction internally for processes, leveraging AI to be more efficient and scale faster for customers.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we've talked in detail in the past about how it started as a bit of a hobby for you on the side AI, and now it's kind of the forefront of what you do and what you champion in the business. So, can you just talk us through that journey as well of your experience with AI and yeah, how you've got to where you've got to?
Yeah, no, totally. So going back to when ChatGPT kind of came out, like we started a small like working group, and most of us, right, weren't like data scientists, I would say, right? Like I kind of thrown into it. So it was really just learning around ChatGPT, and kind of through that, I think we all know like the space just evolves so rapidly, right? So it was really just diving in head first, right, into standing up our own models, building our own models from places like Hugging Face, right? All the open source models, getting familiar with the different ways to do prompt engineering of getting the right data out of the models. And then obviously when the larger vendors started coming out, the Anthropics, the Metas, Google with their Gemini models, really interacting with them to understand how they can solve some of these challenges. Because like us, like most people, right, we threw like large quantities of data at the models, hoping they were going to solve everything. And that's where we realized, there's a lot of science behind how you actually break up the data to provide it to the models, getting them to respond the way you want to. And then the big thing too, like hallucinations, that's what everyone's really concerned with. So how can you control or actually ground the models within their response to that? So really, it was just kind of a fail fast, learn fast kind of methodology that we kind of took with AI piece. And that's kind of how I've gained a lot of my AI knowledge as well, just trying different things, learning how things work, where things don't work, and then improving it and going from there, being very dynamic because this space, it changes so fast. Obviously now with agentic AI, MCP, there's just a lot of stuff every day that it is kind of a little bit hard to keep up, I would say, with the new trends in the
Yeah.
space.
No, I love it. Straight in at the deep end and yeah,
Yeah.
learn on your feet. But yeah, it's great to see. Obviously, you've had some amazing impact on the organization, particularly around the product features as well. Can you just give us a little bit of insight into the impact you've been able to have, and particularly to start with on the product front? I know you've done some really cool work there, so yeah, it'd be great to hear a bit about your yeah the impact you've been able to have.
Yeah, so definitely going back to like the dive in head first piece, like I think everyone got familiar with chatbots, like probably too familiar with chatbots. And we realized kind of the struggle or pain point with that, right? Is, if users don't know how to build out the right prompts, they could get very frustrated or they could spend hours going back and forth with a bot instead of responding to an incident. So one of the approaches we took was like, how can we make that simpler for users? So our approach is we essentially took like 2 decades of knowledge that we've had across both companies of doing, threat hunting, incident response, investigations, and built out a kind of a prompt framework to really ground the models. So as events come in, like we're able to automatically triage those events and also give the AI the flexibility to create its own investigation plans. So it knows, hey, this was credential theft coming in. Here's the questions I should probably go ask across the environment and get answers to determine, hey, is this a really big event that should be escalated to a human analyst to review? Or, hey, is this a benign event? So that's what we're really done in the product is we're doing all the analysis before it even gets to the user. So they don't have to go to a chat bot. Like it's doing a full write-up of, here's what we discovered through the investigation path. Here's the other additional correlating data we found in the environment and our determination of, hey, is this event something that should be escalated or de-escalated? So we're already seeing a big impact from users and even customers too, where we've seen like MSSPs and MDRs pick it up where it's making their people more efficient. And they're also seeing like when you pair or augment those teams with AI with those write-ups, their users are actually able to learn from that, right? So if they see a write-up for credential theft, they can start understanding of here's kind of the methodology it took. And so next time they see an event, they really don't have to rely on AI. So it's also kind of like a learning tool that we're seeing from customers on the product side.
Yeah, oh, it's so impressive, and like you say, you've been able to kind of utilize so much on the product front. But I think what's particularly interesting about your role is the impact you've been able to have on the wider business as well, and the maturity of AI across the whole company is so far advanced compared to a lot of other players in the space. So, from a wider business perspective, where do you think the key wins have been, and the key successes?
Yeah, so we saw the success on that side in the product, but then we started looking internally, right? Of, we had siloed knowledge and not in a bad way. It's just certain teams could only do certain tasks where the knowledge lived with a few individuals. And so it kind of created on bottlenecks internally of, hey, we need to build out this integration or this parser. Like we have to go to this specific engineering team who already has a lot of things on their plate. And they have to stop what they're doing to go fix this issue or write a parser. So we kind of saw that as a bottleneck. And so that's actually kind of where we started. So about 11 months ago, we built an internal tool called Sidekick. So it wasn't to replace engineers, it was really to augment and help do all those mundane tasks. So essentially, we took, how do we onboard a software engineer or consultant to be able to write parsers for our security operations platform or even security content that our products need to use and leverage. So we took the documentation that we'd give to them to train them on what good code looks like or good outputs for each one of these and then kind of our schema. And we kind of built that into an agentic framework to now where, a consultant, sales engineer, someone in support, or even product, they can actually just take logs, for example, like syslog, dump it into a form and hit go, and the agentic AI will actually write out a parser. And so it's something that used to take like 40 hours worth of work that we're doing now in less than 5 minutes. So it helped us able to churn through a backlog of like all these parsing requests. And so we're actually taking a lot of that and moving into the product to really give a better user experience. But once we saw the success of that, like we started expanding of like, okay, where are other places? Security content is one that I touched on. Third-party integrations is another one as well. So that's a very common one of usually when someone says, hey, I want you to integrate with this tool, you have to go read their API documentation, set up a lab, code it to your own schema, do testing and deploy it. So that also takes probably like 40 hours worth of work. So that was another area that we kind of built an agentic framework where you can actually just provide API documentations or specs and actually goes builds the full integration, about like 300 lines of code in 5 minutes that you're able to then just deploy and you're off and running with integration. So we took a lot of the boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that no one really likes doing because they want to focus on the innovative stuff and really kind of automated that to give some time back to them. So that's just some of the things that we've done internally to kind of streamline, make things more efficient, and free up our engineering teams to focus on the innovative things and R&D parts for our customers to make our products better.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see. I know you won't want to give away too many of your secrets, but yeah, it's great to hear some of the successes you've had. And obviously AI, like you say, for the last couple of years has been on the tip of everyone's tongue as a huge buzzword in the space. Um, you've mentioned a couple of times already on the pod about agentic AI and how that's developing in the sector. Can you just give a bit of an overview of kind of the key trends that you're identifying with AI and where people need to be paying particular attention to?
Yeah, like I always said, like the space changes so fast, so there's always a new thing coming out. So like obviously we started with the Gen AI front of just doing a direct prompt to the models. Then agentic AI, I would say probably summer of last year. So with the Lang chains, the Crew AI, Llama Index, they kind of just came onto the scene and we started really investigating them because we were like, this seems like it could solve a lot of operational challenges, but like how does this work? So we really started diving into that. And so I think this year you'll see a lot more companies both in security and IT in general, and even customers as well, start adopting these agentic AI frameworks to really kind of streamline and automate a lot of the tasks that, were mundane or boring, or they may not have enough people to do, to really kind of automate that. And we've talked about automation, I think, in this industry for a while. And we've talked about, simple automation where you just build out a simple workflow. Then you really had ML or machine learning that was more predictive. And now we have AI or agentic AI that's a little more adaptive and reactive to the environment, which is really game changing. But now too, I think everyone knows if you keep up with the space, probably about, I think in November timeframe, Anthropic came out with their MCP protocol. It's kind of the open source kind of framework or schema for folks to use to be able to share different infrastructure. And that's really, I'd say, starting to take off now with the adoption from OpenAI and other large vendors are really adopting that framework. So MCP is something new too that I think you'll see a lot more traction, I think, later in the year being built into a lot of security tools along with agentic AI. And so those are probably the two big things that'll go on this year.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, not a lot of people will be aware of MCP yet, but it's definitely on the horizon. Can you just give an overview of exactly what that is and how it might impact people in the space?
Yeah, I think the big thing with agentic AI, MCP, and just AI in general is, it's great for the practitioners to use, but we all know the bad guys are going to use it as well. And then also there's a big concern around like data leakage, right? So MCP, it's a fairly new protocol that's come out and a lot of vendors are adopting it. But I think from an industry standpoint, we just need to think about like how's that going to be secured because you're connecting to, a different server that may be set up by a different vendor. You don't know, is this a legit company? Is there like man in the middle, like sniffing like kind of what you're sending over? So there's really a lot that you have to do to make sure the data you're sending to these MCP servers is secure, who has access to it. So I think there's gonna be a lot of trends, I'd say, later this year as well, securing MCP. And same thing with agentic AI. All these solutions are touching data now that, traditionally may not been in scope for a lot of applications. So now your databases that are housing intellectual property, customer data or PII data, like all that's in scope now for, agentic frameworks to be able to touch or interact with. And so they're definitely, from a security standpoint, we got to be aware of how can we secure that data to make sure that it's not being leaked. So I think that's also a lot too from what customers will be kind of looking into in that space as well of how to secure that data because I think a lot of customers are concerned about adopting AI for that particular reason as well as data loss.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. Um, and obviously, Trellix are, as I say, very mature compared to a lot of other organizations with AI. What advice would you have for any maybe startups or organizations that feel a little bit further behind on the AI journey in terms of laying some really solid foundations and utilizing AI to the best of its capabilities, both from a product sense and from a business-wide context as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say like take up the mindset of like fail fast, learn fast
Hmm.
type approach. And then from a AI standpoint, I think leveraging services like AWS Bedrock or Google Vertex AI, where it's SaaS based, so you can spin up different models, test them out, like to make sure they meet your requirements. Because that's one thing I think a lot of people kind of struggle with as well is, they'll go throw like a large set of data at a prompt, it doesn't return or do the thing they wanted it to, and they just kind of give up and say, well, AI can't do this. There's a lot of tweaking and a lot of going back and forth, I think, of building out the right prompt to analyze your data, get the right return and format, so grounding the model. So really just task, right? And I would say nothing's impossible for AI. I think a lot of people have that in mind too of, AI can't do this. I think a lot of things are possible. You just have to try and tweak, and there's a lot of free courses out there. So like going back to the agentic AI front, I know LangChain has the LangChain Academy. It's a free course. It has like 24 hours worth of training to kind of get up to speed on it. The other great thing too is there's the cool thing about this, right, is there's a very big open source community of a lot of people sharing different ways, right, or different code of how they've solved different challenges. And I would definitely say like leverage that and tweak it to your needs, and be able to test out with. But it can definitely help a lot of smaller companies and startups as well to go fast. Like all those use cases I talked about, from the very mundane or boring stuff from an engineering standpoint that might be taken away from your engineers from doing innovation or R&D. Like you definitely try to automate that and then have them focus on the really cool and important stuff.
And you mentioned there about some really good advice there. You mentioned about some of the networks that people can tap into. Is there any that you found particularly valuable?
Yeah, definitely LangChain. Like we do a lot of stuff with LangChain. They have a huge GitHub repo of examples of how to work through things. AWS also has a lot of great like free trainings within AWS along with Google as well. So they both have pretty much kind of AI academies trying to get you up to speed of how to do prompt engineering, working with the different models. Anthropic also has some free courses out there as well, just of working with Claude. And like I said, just test it out, right? I mean, leverage Claude. There's Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini. Like, just test out some of those chatbots that are out there, and just with different use cases or data, just to see what you can kind of get back.
Amazing. And what would you say has been your biggest learn in the last couple of years in kind of the advancement of AI at Trellix? Is there any particular learning points that stand out to you?
Yeah, it goes back to that. Well, AI can't do this, and we go, okay, well, let's just see what happens, and we throw it, and then AI does something that just
Yeah.
blows your mind. So, for example, like basic C4 encoding is very common in a lot of events you see in enterprise environments. We were just working with like the event analysis piece of doing write-ups, and just working with Claude, for example, from Anthropic. Like it decoded the file without telling it to decode the file, and accurately determine what was in the script, which that was kind of a wow moment for us because traditionally that may take hours for an analyst to actually do, and it just did that on its own because it knew that it needed to understand what was in that basic for encoded string to make a determination about the event. So it is really amazing of how fast the space is moving, and in a lot of cases AI is either on par or in some cases uh, above the quality that humans can do from an analyst standpoint of reviewing events, doing write-ups and recommendations. So there's been a lot of those aha moments, and that's what I would just recommend to everyone as well is, that stuff you think is impossible, try it out with some of these models and maybe actually surprised at what they can actually do and the quality of the responses they actually provide back.
Definitely. Well, it's been amazing chatting to you, Zach. I think you've given some great contacts there about the AI in the space, and some great resources for people to reach out to as well if they are at the start of their journey. So, yeah, just want to say thanks very much for your time. It's been amazing having you on, and
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
really learned a lot there. So, thanks very much for your time, and hope everyone finds it useful.